My girlfriend tossed my birthday present aside and said, "This looks cheap. Did you get it from a discount bin?" I said, "Fair enough." I quietly took it back to the jeweler. When she came home and found the appraisal note on the table, she didn't even sit down before her hands started shaking. That wasn't the opening I had planned for our story. The planned opening was a tight shot on my watch, a limited edition piece in brushed steel, glinting in the perfect light of a restaurant I'd spent 6 weeks maneuvering to get a reservation at. My name is Anthony Mercer, and I'm 33 years old. If you looked at my life, the labeled fridge, the auto-pay bills, the modest but well-appointed 2-bedroom apartment, you'd think I was the picture of stability. But my stability wasn't built on savings accounts or sensible habits. It was built on a fragile, perfectly calibrated aesthetic that said, "I belong here." My closet was not 90% neutrals. It was 90% intentional. My credit score was smug, but only because I spent every waking moment trying to outrun the ghost of my childhood, a cold fear that any lapse in judgment or taste would send me tumbling back to the place where having something cheap felt like a diagnosis. Hannah, my girlfriend of 2 years, my cohabitant of 8 months, didn't understand this. She just saw the surface. We met at one of those rooftop parties where the true cost of admission was looking like you didn't care about the cost. She was comfortable in her skin. I was comfortable in my clothes. I managed a menswear store for a designer brand that was all about communicating status without shouting. Slept. I valued the drape of a shirt and how the right watch signaled not where you were, but where you saw yourself in 5 years. I tried to bring Hannah into that world, to polish the edges of her practicality. I didn't want a trophy. I wanted a shield. Sometimes late at night, I would see a flash of Laya, my ex, across social media. Long legs, glossy hair, a champagne glass held just so. Laya, who understood luxury and price points as if it were a native tongue. Hannah was all library books and budgeting, and for a long time, I mistook her quiet stability for safety, and maybe for the cheapness I was trying to leave behind. It was her birthday last Tuesday. I had been hinting for weeks about the dinner. An elevated experience at a downtown spot that specialized in pretentious tasting menace. "It'll be good for both of us," I told her, smoothing the lapel of my new, seasoned navy blazer, acquired with an associate discount. She wore a simple black dress and comfortable heels. She looked classic, which was the most generous word I could find for understated. The restaurant was perfect. The lighting made everyone look slightly richer. The menu, as any truly expensive menu should, listed prices in a quiet column, as if they were a mere footnote to the experience. I knew the host's name, of course, and made sure to drop a line about how hard it was to get a 7 o'clock table. I narrated the tiny food sculptures, trying to inject some meaning into the meal. But I could feel a wire coiling tighter inside me. I kept checking the time, glancing at the bar. It felt less like a celebration and more like a test run for the life I felt entitled to. Around 8:30, a dessert arrived. A miniature chocolate creation with a single candle. I flashed my public smile for the inevitable camera phone that wasn't there. The waiter set a small, wrapped box beside her plate. I leaned forward, hands folded. Inside was the watch. Sleek face, leather band, minimal design. "It's the same model that guy from the fall campaign wore," I said, reciting the details that proved its worth. "They sold out, but I talked to the buyer. She said it was beautiful, and she meant it. She put it on, appreciating the effort, the subtle connection to the world I valued. I felt satisfied. I had passed my test for her, proving I could still access that world. We split the bill, as we always did. The financial fairness a crucial anchor in our otherwise asymmetrical life. On the drive home, with the city lights rushing past, like an expensive screensaver, I knew the moment had arrived. I tapped the steering wheel, lowered the volume, and slid the request across the console. "So," I began, my voice casual, "I've been thinking about my birthday." "It's in 3 weeks," she said. "Calm and ready, I know," I said. "There's this necklace I've been eyeing. White gold, small diamond pendant, very clean. From that jeweler on 5th. I sent you the link last week. It's very me, you know. I've never had a piece like that. Laya got me some great stuff. But nothing like this." The name slipped out, quiet and sharp, the ghost in the machine. She went still. "I'll think about it. I'm just figuring out the budget." I sighed through my nose. "It's not like I'm asking for a yacht, Hannah. It's an investment piece." I wanted her to stop measuring my desires by her spreadsheets. I wanted her to feel the shame of her budget limitations and overcome them. For me, I needed her to prove she could stretch. She didn't answer. I stared out the window, anticipating the victory. I just didn't realize that in her mind, she had already color-coded the spreadsheet to make the impossible possible. And the necklace was already waiting in the back of her closet. I was about to walk right into my own trap. The apartment was silent when we pulled into the lot. Hannah was quiet, and I took her silence as a sign of respect for the price tag I'd laid out. I watched her closely, waiting for the visible signs of sacrifice to begin. I needed to see the struggle, the effort. I needed the gift to be hard-won, because that would prove her value to me, and my value to the world. Over the next few weeks, I was pleased. Hannah was suddenly focused. Her usual routine of library books and takeout was replaced by the low hum of her laptop late into the evening. She said she was picking up freelance client calls. She was saving. I observed her movements. The way she bypassed the coffee shop on her way to work. The way she canceled the one streaming service she actually enjoyed. She became ruthless with her budget. The kind of quiet discipline I respected because it was being enacted for my benefit. "You seem very organized lately," I noted one evening, watching her review a spreadsheet on her kitchen table. The glow of the screen reflected in her eyes, giving her a serious, almost strained look. "Just tying up loose ends," she replied, not looking up. "The numbers have to work. The numbers have to work." That was the core language of my life. Her commitment affirmed my choice in her. She was bending her practical nature to serve my aesthetic demands, which was the closest she could come to being Laya. Laya never had to struggle. She just acquired. But Hannah's struggle was almost better. It was proof of devotion, measured in canceled dinners and extra hours. My birthday was still 3 weeks away, but the anticipation was becoming unbearable. I found myself scrolling through the jeweler's website daily, revisiting the clean, white gold pendant, rehearsing the moment I would open it. I needed it to be perfect. Every piece of jewelry Laya had given me had been perfect, flawlessly branded, instantly recognizable. I needed Hannah to match that standard. One weekend, her sister called, inviting her on a short weekend trip to the coast. I listened from the kitchen as Hannah carefully declined. "I can't right now, maybe next month," she said. A pause. "I'm trying to save right now, you know. I can't afford the time off." A small, proud smile touched my lips. She was prioritizing the necklace over a weekend of relaxation and sisterly bonding. This was commitment. The pressure I felt, however, was internal. The image of Leia kept filtering into my mind. I often thought about how her gifts always communicated insider knowledge, as if she and the brand were in on a secret together. What if Hannah missed a critical detail? What if she bought the wrong white gold, or the wrong carat weight? I couldn't risk a public failure. If I wore something that looked like a mistake, it would reflect not on her, but on me. So, late one night, about 8 weeks before the initial conversation, I pulled up the jeweler's website myself. I found the necklace, pulled the technical specifications, and drafted a discreet email. I included the exact chain length, the preferred style of clasp, and the minimum diamond quality I required. I sent it directly to the jeweler's customer service line. I wanted the piece to be perfect, flawless, an investment. This wasn't setting Hannah up. This was helping her. This was quality control. She wouldn't even know I'd done it. 2 days before my actual birthday, I came home earlier than usual. The apartment was quiet. I walked into the bedroom, looking for a belt, and noticed a small, oblong box, the exact shape of a high-end jewelry case, hidden awkwardly in the back of the closet, tucked beneath my heavy, off-season wool coats. It was hastily hidden. My heart gave a little jump. She had done it. I pulled it out, turning the box over in my hand. It was unmarked, simple, but heavy with promise. My curiosity, or perhaps my anxiety, was too much. I needed to confirm the quality. I needed to ensure my fear of the cheap object wouldn't materialize on my actual birthday. I gently lifted the lid. Inside, nested in a dark velvet lining, was the white gold necklace. It was perfect, exactly matching the minimal style I had been agonizing over. I felt a genuine wave of relief. She had understood the assignment. I quickly closed the box, tucked it back under the coat, and smoothed the fabric over it. I was deeply satisfied, knowing the struggle had been worth it. The necklace was waiting. Now, I could simply wait for the triumphant presentation. That satisfaction was shattered a few hours later. Hannah was running late from a client call. I was scrolling through my feed, seeing a photo of a menswear competitor with a new watch, and a strange wave of panic hit me. I walked straight to the closet, pulled the box out again, and brought it to the living room. It was now or never. I needed to hold it in the proper light, away from the clutter of her side of the closet. I needed to feel its weight. I needed to ensure it wasn't a hallucination. When Hannah walked in, exhausted from her long day of work and savings, the first thing she saw was me, sitting on the couch, holding the small, velvet box in my hands. "What's this?" I asked, my voice flat, already lifting the lid again. Her shoulders visibly dropped. That's for your birthday," she stammered. I hid it so you wouldn't find it." The word, surprise, hung uselessly in the air. I opened the box under the harsh glare of the floor lamp. The chain caught the light. The small diamond glittered. I knew it was the one, the correct one, the one I had specified. But in that moment of unplanned reveal, all my social anxiety, all my shame of the past, overwhelmed my reason. It was small. Too small for a high-value reveal. It lacked the immediate, blinding flash of status that Leia's jewelry always possessed. It felt quiet. And quiet felt cheap. I stared at the diamond, magnifying its size with my inner critic's eye. I made a face, already tasting the acid of shame. "This looks cheap," I said. "Did you get it from a mall kiosk or something?" I didn't mean to say it, not exactly, but the words were already out, driven by the panic that she, my practical girlfriend, had settled for less, thereby branding me with that same inadequacy. The room went silent. I had finally found the failure I was searching for. And the failure was hers. The air in the living room solidified around my words. I heard the fridge humming, the pipes ticking in the walls of our apartment, every sound magnified by the sudden, profound silence. What? Hannah's voice was barely a whisper. She looked at the necklace, then back at me, her face pale. I mean, it's nice that you tried. I pressed on, unable to stop the torrent of panic. I held the delicate chain closer to my own face, squinting, performing the objective appraisal I knew I would receive from my colleagues. But this isn't the one I sent you the link for. The chain is thin, and the diamond is tiny. It looks like a knockoff. My heart hammered against my ribs. I knew it wasn't a knockoff. I knew I had chosen this exact design, this minimal elegance. But panic was a physical force, overriding logic. I needed to deny the reality of the gift, because the reality of the gift was too quiet, too subtle, too reflective of the practical life I was trying to leave behind. If I wore this, people wouldn't see the careful savings. They would see her budget. They would see me settling. It's not a knockoff, she finally said, her voice rising slightly. It's from the exact jeweler who made the one in the link. I had it custom made. I laughed, a short, sharp sound that held no humor. Custom. Hannah. No offense, but this is not custom. Look at it. I gestured dismissively with the box. This is exactly what you asked for, she insisted. I've been saving for 2 months. The mention of her saving, the effort she put in, only made my anxiety worse. Effort felt cheap compared to effortless acquisition. Well. I shrugged, setting the box down on the coffee table as if it were sticky. You should have saved longer or gotten something different. This just doesn't read as quality. If I wore this, people would think you grabbed it from a discount bin. The shift in her expression was immediate and terrifying. It wasn't anger. It was the cold clarity of a lens snapping into focus. I had expected tears, defense, an argument about the price. I was prepared for all of that. I was not prepared for her sudden calm. Fair enough? She said. I blinked. What? Fair enough, she repeated, her voice steady in a way that surprised and disturbed me. If you don't like it, I'll return it. I didn't say return it. I protested quickly, snatching the words back. I still wanted the necklace. I just didn't want the perception of her purchase. I just said it's not what I wanted. There's a difference. You called it cheap, she countered, standing up. The movement was slow, deliberate. You said it would embarrass you, so I'll take it back. No big deal. You're being dramatic, I scoffed, trying to regain control of the narrative. I'm being practical, she corrected. You don't like it. I'll get my money back. I threw my hands up in exasperation. Whatever. Do what you want. I'm gonna bed. I retreated down the hall and closed the bedroom door. It wasn't a slam. It was a soft, final click that signaled the conversation was over for me. I had rejected the gift. I had established the standard. Now I needed time to process how to get the correct version without admitting my mistake. I left her sitting there. I changed quickly, standing by the door listening. I heard the faint rustle of the throw blanket being pulled off the couch. She was staying out there. The quiet tension felt thicker than the air outside. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, expecting her to come in and initiate the tearful apology that would allow me to forgive her for her lapse in taste. But the door stayed shut. I realized she was holding the necklace on the couch, examining it under the weak lamplight. I imagined the diamond catching the light in its quiet, stubborn sparkles. It wasn't cheap. It was exactly what I had asked for, down to the millimeter. But my fear had been too loud to hear my own request. I closed my eyes, Tomorrow, I would apologize vaguely, insist we exchange it for something better, and then send the jeweler another detailed email, making sure the new one was somehow flashier. I just needed sleep. On the other side of the wall, I didn't hear crying or pacing. Just silence. And in that silence, I missed the moment that she made a clean, sharp decision, one that involved not the jeweler, but her future with me. The apartment felt different, quieter, even though it had always been quiet. This silence was deeper, heavier. It was the sound of something breaking cleanly in two. The quiet continued through the night, a profound, unnatural stillness. When I finally dragged myself out of bed on Wednesday morning, the apartment felt different. Not empty, but erased. The bedroom door was open. Hannah's side of the mattress was perfectly smoothed, a stark contrast to my messy pile of pillows. She had already left. My eyes found the spot on the coffee table where the necklace box had been. It was gone. A jolt of panic hit me. She hadn't left a note, but the absence of the box told me everything. She had done it. She had returned the gift without consulting me. I checked the time on my phone. 7:12 a.m. She was already gone, avoiding the inevitable conversation. Practical, I thought, the word tasting like ash. She's always practical. I went into the kitchen. The morning light filtering through the window was dingy, making the counter look perpetually stained, even though I knew she had meticulously cleaned it the night before. I pulled out my phone and checked my banking app. The funds for the custom necklace hadn't been returned yet, which made sense. I started the kettle. While waiting for the water to boil, my mind automatically began converting the cost of the necklace, roughly $3,200, into units of my time. Hours I spent arranging the store displays. Weekends I spent dealing with inventory crises. It was a significant amount of money, even if it wasn't the flashiest amount. I had dismissed her efforts so casually, and now she had yanked the financial rug out from under my anticipation. The kettle whistled. I made instant coffee, took one scalding sip, and set it down. My stomach was too knotted to tolerate caffeine. Hannah, however, was already at the jeweler's. She was driven by an eerie, focused calm. At 9:40, she left the apartment for the second time in 2 hours, her purse heavy with the box. She drove through the overcast city toward the part of town I had taught her to respect, the one with the heritage craftsmanship and the investment pieces. Jennings' fine jewelry had a subtle storefront, gold lettering on dark glass, quietly smug. Inside, the soft music and the faint, expensive smell of polish were exactly as I had described them. Hannah approached the counter. The woman working there, Irene, looked up and smiled, her eyes going straight to the purse Hannah clutched. "Oh," Irene said. "You're back. Did he love it?" Hannah swallowed, fighting the sudden lump in her throat. "Actually," she said, her voice steady, "I need to return it." Irene's professional smile faltered. "Oh no. Was there a problem with the piece? We made it exactly to the specifications." "The piece is fine," Hannah replied. "It just wasn't what he wanted." We followed his email to the letter. Irene repeated gently, trying to reassure her. "He emailed us about 2 months ago. Very detailed instructions. Chain thickness, diamond size, clasp type. We still have it on file if that helps with anything." The world seemed to tilt beneath Hannah's feet. "He emailed you. Can I see it?" she asked, her fingers tightening around the strap of her bag. Irene, sensing the sudden shift in atmosphere, turned the monitor toward her. There it was. My name in the sender line. The subject custom pendant specs. The body was a list, down to the millimeter, and the carat weight. My handwriting, my tone, my fastidious attention to detail, all laid bare. I had designed the necklace myself. I had demanded this exact item. And then, when she had spent 2 months sacrificing for it, I had looked her in the eye and called it cheap. "It's exactly this necklace?" Hannah asked, hearing how small her voice sounded in the echoing stillness of the pristine store. "Yes," Irene confirmed. "When you came in and placed the order, we linked it to that correspondence. It's exactly what he asked for." Hannah realized that she hadn't just failed the test. She had been given the answer key, and still been told she was wrong. I hadn't just rejected the gift. I had rejected her effort and her taste, even when they perfectly aligned with my own secret demands. I had set up the criteria for a failure months in advance. I still need to return it. Hannah finally managed, the decision clear and cold in her mind. Irene explained that because it was a custom piece, she could only issue store credit, but it would be for the full $3,200. "Store credit is fine," Hannah said. "And yes, please print the appraisal." Irene processed the return. The printer hummed. The appraisal, a formal document confirming the value of the custom 14 carat diamond necklace, slid out onto the counter. Hannah stared at the figure $3,200. It was real. The cost was real. The effort was real. The rejection was real. She folded the appraisal into thirds, slid it into her bag, and walked out. The air outside felt colder than when she had walked in. Back in the apartment, her movements were mechanical. She went straight to the kitchen table and placed the appraisal in the very center. Then, she pulled an old envelope from the junk drawer and a pen. In her neat, meticulous handwriting, she wrote a note. "This is the appraisal for the cheap necklace you rejected. The jeweler confirmed. You sent detailed specifications for this exact piece 2 months ago. I returned it for store credit. You can use it for something that better meets your standards. I'm staying with a friend for a while. We'll talk when I'm ready." She read it twice, ensuring every word served its purpose. She took her apartment key off her ring, placed it next to the paper, and then went to the bedroom, pulling out a suitcase. I was about to realize that I hadn't just lost a necklace. I had lost the value of 2 years. Hannah finished packing, her movements careful and precise, sealing the belongings that truly mattered: a laptop, a well-loved copy of a paperback. Essentials for a week or two, into a single suitcase. She bypassed the closet of designer shoes I'd pressured her into buying, leaving them as artifacts of a life that wasn't hers. She looked at the dent in the mattress on my side of the bed, the sag where my phone always charged, and realized the immense effort it would take to trust that space, or me, again. She understood that leaving now was the only way to stop pretending everything was fine. She grabbed her bag and took one last slow walk through the apartment. The appraisal and the key sat on the kitchen table like mute judges. The key was hers, but she was relinquishing the right to use it. At the door, she paused, then stepped out into the hallway, pulling the door shut softly behind her. Hannah drove away from the apartment, leaving the appraisal and the key behind. I was at the store, detailing a new shipment of Italian leather goods, when my phone started ringing, but I couldn't answer, frantic that she might call my workplace. "Hey, Hannah. Everything okay?" Jared's voice was instantly grounded, lacking the performative high pitch of my professional tone. "Not really," she said, the word cracking. "Can I? Is your couch still available?" "Always," he replied immediately. "You want me to come get you?" "No, I'm already in the car." I'll be there in 20 minutes. When she arrived at Jared's, he didn't ask for details or an explanation. He just opened the door, took the suitcase, and handed her a cold beer. They sat on his couch, an old, soft, overstuffed thing that was the complete antithesis of our minimalist catalog, ready sofa. It felt more like home. After she took a long, steady sip of the beer, Jared spoke gently. So what happened? Hannah told him everything. The restaurant, the watch, the hidden box, the words cheap and embarrassing. She told him about the jeweler, the custom specifications, the email, and the cold reality of the $3,200 store credit. She laid out the sickening realization that I had designed a test intended for her to fail, and then gotten angry when she passed it by listening to my own exact instructions. Jared whistled, a low, quiet sound. So he set you up, he concluded, and then got mad when you didn't magically read his mind to know that he meant the opposite of what he asked for. I don't even know if it was about the necklace, Hannah whispered, staring into the frothy head of the beer. I think he just wanted to feel disappointed, like that was the goal. Like his desire for perfection mattered more than my reality. That's messed up, Han. I know. It was around 6 p.m. when my phone started vibrating against the countertop at work. I glanced down. Hannah. I ignored the first call, assuming she was calling to apologize or explain the return. Then the second, and the third. By the fourth, I checked the display. It was an unknown number. My stomach lurched. I assumed she had sold the necklace on a black market and was contacting me via burner phone. When I finally got back to the apartment around 7:30, the first thing I saw was the kitchen table. The stark white paper. The house key. The clean, formal print of the appraisal. $3,200. I immediately grabbed the paper. My hands started shaking as I read her meticulous, damning note. The jeweler confirmed you sent detailed specifications for this exact piece 2 months ago. The shame hit me like a physical blow. Not the shame of losing the money, but the shame of being caught. She knew. She had found the evidence of my vanity and manipulation. My whole elaborate defense mechanism was exposed. I dropped the appraisal and frantically started calling her phone. Over and over. 23 missed calls quickly accumulated. 30-some texts followed, growing increasingly frantic and contradictory. Where are you? Why is there an appraisal on the table? Call me back. This is ridiculous. We need to talk. You can't just leave like this. At Jared's. Hannah turned her phone over so the incessant buzzing wouldn't rattle against the coffee table. She didn't want to see my name, but the vibration kept shaking the wood. After the 5th call, the buzzing stopped. Then, the voicemails arrived. She waited until 10 p.m. after they had ordered pizza and put on a basketball game neither of them truly cared about, before turning the phone back on. The missed calls and texts were overwhelming. She listened to the first voicemail. Okay. Anthony's voice said, thin and tight. I saw the appraisal. I didn't realize it was that expensive. We should talk. Call me? The second. I'm sorry. All right. Anthony said. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. The necklace is actually really nice. Please come home so we can fix this. The apologies were conditional, centered entirely on the revealed price tag. She deleted them all. Then she read the texts. They were a torrent of self-pity and demands, until one message stopped her cold. It wasn't about her. It was about me. My friends are asking why you're acting like this. What am I supposed to tell them? It was a spotlight, aimed straight at the core of my character. Not are you okay? Not I miss you. But, what story do I tell so I don't look bad? Hannah stared at the text. She typed back before she could overthink the consequence. Tell them the truth. My reply came instantly. What truth? That you're overreacting. She exhaled slowly, and for the first time all day, the knot in her chest loosened. She wrote, Ev, tell them you rejected a $3,200 custom necklace you personally specified, called it cheap and embarrassing, and now you're upset that I believed you. The delivered checkmark appeared. Then, silence. No typing bubble. No instant defense. Just the sound of my exposed ego freezing on the digital wire. Jared nudged her knee. You okay? Not really, Hannah said. But I think I will be. She set the phone face down, pulled the blanket over herself on the couch, and for the first time, she truly slept. Thursday morning. I woke up on Jared's comfortable, second-hand couch. My neck was stiff from sleeping at a bizarre angle. But the ache behind my ribs, the one that had been a constant companion since the previous night, was duller, manageable. I felt like the ass the house slept, that had finally shut down after running on a panicked overdrive cycle for 48 hours. A sliver of light cut through Jared's blinds, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. For a moment, I was disoriented by the unfamiliar room. The mismatched throw pillows, the coffee table stacked with someone else's mail. Then my phone buzzed, and the reality of the past day snapped back into painful focus. A text from Anthony. We need to talk, please. I stared at the screen. My stomach didn't clench this time. It settled heavily, already knowing the answer. There was no internal debate, no frantic weighing of pros and cons. There was only the quiet certainty of what I needed to do. I typed back, I'm coming by at 2 p.m. to get the rest of my things. Please don't be there. The typing bubbles appeared instantly. We should talk face to face. I'm not ready for that, I replied. This is stupid, he shot back, dropping the mask of civility. You're throwing away 2 years over one comment. I closed my eyes, inhaled the scent of Jared's strong, bad coffee wafting from the kitchen, and slowly exhaled. It's not one comment. What pattern? He wrote. I didn't answer. I set the phone down gently, letting him sit in the silence of the question he never wanted to examine. Morning. Jared said from the doorway, hair sticking up, wearing a faded T-shirt for a band that definitely peaked 10 years ago. There's coffee. It's bad, but it exists. Bad is fine, I said. He handed me a mug, sat across from me and didn't push. He just let me exist in the ambiguity. You heading back today? He asked softly. Yeah, just a pack. I confirm. I'm not staying. Jared nodded, accepting my decision without judgment. Want me to come with you? No, I said. I need to do this on my own. He respected that. He understood the difference between support and intrusion. At 1:50, I grabbed my bag and keys, took one last deep breath of the air that was mine alone, and headed out. The drive to the apartment felt shorter than it ever had. I wasn't driving home. I was driving to a place I used to live. Anthony's car was in the lot. Of course it was. He hadn't listened to my request. He needed the confrontation. He needed the chance to manage the narrative one last time. I stood outside the door for a moment, the full weight of the past 2 years pressing against my ribs. Then, I inserted the spare key I'd kept hidden, turned it, and stepped inside. He was sitting on the couch, the wrinkled, folded appraisal paper held loosely in his hands. The edges were creased like he'd been clutching it all night. When he looked up, his eyes were raw, not from crying but from unraveling. Hannah, he said, standing quickly urgently. Please? Can we talk? I'm here to pack, I said, my voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil inside. 5 minutes. That's all. Anthony set the appraisal on the coffee table slowly, delicately, like it was the most fragile thing in the room. "I'm sorry," he said. "Okay," I replied, folding my arms, refusing to close the distance he wanted. "I didn't know how much it cost." He rushed on, the words tumbling out. "I thought you'd gone somewhere cheaper. I didn't know you'd actually gotten it from Jennings." "If I'd known." I held up my hand, cutting him off. "Stop," I said. "Listen to what you're saying. Your apology depends on the price tag." "That's not fair," he pleaded. "You called the necklace cheap." I repeated, my voice even. "And you called it embarrassing. And you barely looked at it before deciding that." "It wasn't about the thought behind it, it was about how it would look to other people." He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again, his composure finally failing. "I didn't know you ordered it to my specifications," Anthony whispered, pushing a hand through his hair. I stared at him. "Slept." He blinked. A slow, fearful realization spread across Anthony's face as he realized his crucial error. He had confessed the manipulation to the victim who had the evidence. "You saw the email," he whispered. "Yes," I confirmed. His shoulders slumped, the air draining from his frame. "I wasn't. I didn't mean to set you up," he stammered, rubbing the bridge of his nose. I wanted it to be perfect. And when I saw it, I panicked. I thought it looked different than I imagined. I thought maybe you missed something." I was exactly what you asked for," I finished quietly. "You asked for the chain thickness, the diamond size, the clasp, all of it." Anthony pushed his hand through his hair again, a gesture of deep, agonizing defeat. "I forgot what I wrote. It was months ago, and when I opened the box, something felt off. I don't know. Maybe I was expecting something flashier. Something more like what Laya used to get you," I asked. Anthony froze. His face went utterly blank. There it was. The ghost I had never dared to name, the true judge of our relationship, standing right in our living room. His silence told me enough. "Anthony," I said. Slept, softer this time. Cutting through the silence that followed the mention of Laya. "You wanted a replica of someone else's relationship. And I was never going to be her." Anthony swallowed hard. His throat bobbed. "I don't want you to be her. You compare me to her without realizing you're doing it." I finished for him. "You care about brands, labels, how things look, how we look. You care about people's reactions more than the meaning behind something." "That's not true," he whispered, his voice desperate. "When you gave me the watch last night," I continued, pressing the point home, "it wasn't about the thought behind it. It was about the batik, the model who wore it, the fact that you had connections to get it." I let the weight of the realization settle between us. Anthony opened his mouth, but no words came out. "When I gave you something meaningful," I said, "you measured it by how it would look to other people. Not what it meant. Not what it cost me, not in money, but in effort." For the first time since I walked in, his face genuinely crumpled. It wasn't the panic of being caught. It was the pain of self-recognition. "Hannah, please don't leave." I should have felt something in that moment. The vindication of winning the argument. The regret of causing him pain, or the sharp sting of fresh heartache. Instead, I felt clarity. It was cold, clean, and exact. "I'm not leaving because you made one mistake," I said. "I'm leaving because this mistake showed me everything else." Anthony stood abruptly, needing to move, needing to close the distance between us, as if physical proximity could somehow bridge the emotional canyon he had just excavated. "Can we fix it? We can go to counseling. I can change." "I don't need you to change," I said, The words quiet but final. Slept. I need someone who already values the things I value, who doesn't turn love into a performance, who doesn't make me feel small for not living in the same aesthetic universe. Anthony went still. I walked past him toward the bedroom and began packing the rest of my clothes into the 2 suitcases. Anthony stood in the doorway, shoulders sagged, eyes defeated, watching but not moving, not arguing anymore. The fight had left him. The truth had been spoken. I pulled my favorite sweater off the hanger. A soft, comfortable cashmere that had no discernible label, and folded it neatly. I packed the toiletries in the pile of worn paperbacks I always kept on my nightstand. As I zipped the second suitcase shut, the sound was strangely loud in the quiet room. Anthony stepped forward. "Please, Hannah. I love you." I paused, my hand resting on the suitcase handle. "You love the version of me who fits into your curated world," I corrected him. "But the real me, the one who packs lunches and saves coupons and buys thoughtful gifts instead of flashy ones. You don't love her. You tolerate her." A tear finally slipped down Anthony's cheek, tracing a clean line through his carefully manicured stubble. I wheeled the 2 suitcases to the door, my heart steady, my hands steady. I took one last, slow look at the apartment. The plant on the windowsill I'd rescued from his old place, the framed photo from our first vacation. Slept. I remembered how he'd insisted we take the photo again, because his watch wasn't visible in the first shot. Every object was stained by his need for status. When I pulled the door open, the light from the hallway seemed brighter, cleaner than the dim, expensive lighting of our apartment. Anthony whispered. "Is this really it? This is me," I said, looking him in the eye for the last time. "Believing you for the first time." Then I stepped into the hallway and pulled the door closed quietly behind me. There was no slam, no dramatic lock click. Just the soft sound of a choice being made, a future shifting. I was walking away from $3,200 worth of store credit, but I was walking toward immeasurable worth. I left him standing in the middle of a life he had successfully staged, alone with the shame I had exposed. The first night, after I officially left Anthony, I slept on Jared's couch without dreaming. Not because I was at peace. Peace was still a distant city on the horizon. But because my body had finally shut down after running on adrenaline and denial for nearly 72 hours. By morning, the ache behind my ribs felt duller, manageable, like a bruise I could touch without wincing. Jared had left early for work, but he'd scribbled a note on a sticky pad. "Eat something. Even heartbreak needs calories. Jay." It made me smile in a way nothing else had in days. It was simple, kind, and completely unperformative. It was the kind of value I had forgotten existed. I checked my phone. 3 new texts from Anthony. "Hannah, please. We need to talk. Can you at least tell me where you're staying? I'm worried. I'm trying here. Why aren't you?" I didn't reply. Not because I wanted to punish him, but because responding would have instantly pulled me backward, forcing me to negotiate the truth I had just fought to establish. I wasn't going back. Not anymore. By the end of the first week, I'd found a temporary co-working space downtown to take my laptop, ensuring I didn't completely commandeer Jared's living room. By the end of week 2, I had toured 5 apartments, signed paperwork on 1, and put down a deposit. It was a small, 1-bedroom unit on the east side. Affordable, quiet, close enough to work that I could walk when the weather cooperated. On move-in day, I stood in the empty living room, its walls blank, dust motes drifting through the window light. For the first time in months, nothing in the space reminded me of him. No designer catalogs on the coffee table. No carefully curated throw blankets. No posed photos taped to the fridge. Just possibility. An air that belonged entirely to me. I sat on the floor, cross-legged, and let the silence hum around me. On day 3 in the new apartment, Anthony texted again. I saw on your LinkedIn you started a new job. Congrats. I mean, a tad. I stared at the message. Kindness, but from a safe distance. The kind of message people send when they want credit for being civil. Not when they want resolution. I didn't respond. He sent one more that night. I'm sorry for everything. Please don't hate me. I didn't hate him. That was the strangest part. Hatred requires a fire I no longer possessed. What I felt was clearer, cooler. A sense of understanding that had arrived too late to save the relationship, but just in time to save me. A week later, I checked social media for the first time since leaving. There he was, Anthony, smiling beside a woman with glossy hair, long lashes, and a designer coat draped over her shoulders like a status badge. They stood beside a luxury SUV with a massive bow on the hood, like a dealership advertisement. She tagged the brand. He tagged the boutique where they'd had their cocktail date. It stung, briefly. Not because he'd moved on, but because he looked so right next to her. He had stepped instantly back into the aesthetic universe he'd tried to mold me into, but where I never quite fit. I closed the app, exhaled slowly. It didn't feel like betrayal. It felt like confirmation. Toward the end of the 6th week, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. Curiosity nudged me to check the message. Hi, Hannah. This is Irene from Jennings Fine Jewelry. Just checking in to see if you've decided what you'd like to do with your store credit. No rush. It never expires. Give us a call anytime. Hope you're well. The store credit. $3,200, sitting quietly in my name, waiting. A symbolic aftershock of the implosion that had blown open the truth about my relationship. I deleted the message, but not before saving the number. That night, I called my mom. Sweetheart, how's the new place? Did the stove get fixed? Yeah, I said. The super replaced it this morning. How's your heart? She asked gently. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Better, I said. Not perfect, but better. Good, she said, relief softening her voice. You deserve better. She didn't mean better than Anthony specifically. She meant better than someone who made love conditional, who measured worth in receipts and reactions. Hey, Mom, I said. Your birthday's in a few months, right? It is, she said, suspicious. Why? No reason, I said, smiling faintly. Just wondering. When we hung up, I sat on the floor of my empty living room. I thought about the necklace I'd returned, the long hours I'd put into saving for it. Slept. The way Anthony had held it between two fingers like something disposable. And then I thought about my mom, a woman who wore the $40 bracelet I'd bought her at 19, as if it were made of diamonds. A woman who knew the value of effort, not appearance. Maybe one day I'd use the store credit for her. Or maybe I wouldn't use it at all. Maybe it could stay unspent. An unspoken reminder of the moment I stopped mistaking luxury for love. A few nights later, Jared came over with takeout. We ate on the floor, because I didn't have a dining table yet. He told me about his disastrous date with a woman who tried to psychoanalyze him over dumplings. I told him about the neighbor downstairs who listened to jazz loudly at exactly 10 p.m. every night. It felt easy, natural, warm in a way I hadn't realized I'd been missing. After he left, I washed the dishes, turned off the kitchen light, and leaned against the doorway of my bare little living room. 33. Starting over again, but not from nothing. From clarity. I realized I hadn't lost anything. I had reclaimed myself. The best part. I didn't even have to return the clarity.